Why are conservatives fighting each other in the wake of the federal election? It's time to talk about civil war within the conservative movement in Canada. I'm Steve Sandford. You're watching Dominion Report. Before the election, Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario and leader of the Ontario Provincial Conservative Party, had some strong words to say about Donald Trump, the tariff war, and the threats of U.S. annexation of Canada. Ontario has been hit hard by the tariffs, as a large part of Ontario economy is all about auto manufacturing. At one point, Ford even threatened to cut off electrical power exports from Ontario to the United States. Ontario supplies power to Michigan, Minnesota, and New York, and those states rely on that electricity for their power. Ford, who has often been criticized by the center and the left of the political spectrum, suddenly became one of the leading figures in Canada's involuntary trade war with the United States. Around this time, Pierre Poilievre was struggling to adapt his federal election campaign to the resignation of Justin Trudeau and to the new national enemy that was emerging from south of the border. As we've discussed in other videos, perhaps Poilievre was likely hesitant to criticize Trump for fear of alienating Canadian MAGA voters. Or perhaps it was something else. We'll talk about that in a minute. There were words spoken to reporters by conservatives from both camps about each other, and they weren't always complimentary. There were also insider claims, that Poilievre's campaign asked Ford's campaign manager for strategic help, and that help was denied. I should note that Ford has denied this claim. Meanwhile, Ford continued to be outspoken against Trump, while Poilievre wasn't so much. It's clear that there are differing opinions on how much to criticize Donald Trump. After the election, re-elected conservative Jamil Javani, MP for Bowmanville, Oshawa North, gave a scathing interview to CBC News about Doug Ford. Javani called Ford unprincipled, claimed that he has hollowed out the Ontario Conservative Party, and suggested that he doesn't actually solve problems. Javani, who was first elected to Parliament in a by-election following the resignation of former Conservative leader Erin O'Toole, also accused Ford of being an opportunist. Let's look at this through the lens of history. The traditional progressive Conservative Party in Canada struggled a number of years ago when the further right-wing Reform Party was initiated. The Reform Party started in the late 80s as a protest against the Brian Mulroney Conservatives, who claimed that the Mulroney Conservatives were prioritizing Quebec in their agenda, they weren't decreasing taxes, and they couldn't balance a budget. Led by Preston Manning, the Reform Party were populist, right-wing, mostly Alberta-based, and had strong ties to evangelical Christianity. The Reform Party grew in the 90s, displacing the Progressive Conservative Party as the largest right-wing party in Canada, and achieved actual official opposition status after the 1997 election. Eventually, the Reform Party, after a few name changes, and the old moderate Progressive Conservative Party merged into the current Conservative Party of Canada. Former Prime Minister Stephen Harper very much came from the Reform side of the party. Poilievre, who some describe as Harper's protege, did also. It's clear that there is more Reform influence in the current party makeup than there is old, what I would call Joe Clark-style progressive conservatives. Now, Ford, he is a provincial politician, and he is from Ontario. He does not come from the Reform side of today's Conservatives. And therein appears to be the rift. The Reform side seems to be hesitant to criticize Donald Trump, to condemn MAGA-type politics, and has even adopted MAGA-style bumper sticker political slogans. I have a series of videos on that. I'll put the link in the comments. Now, the reason that one side is hesitant to criticize Trump is important. And it probably warrants further investigation. Either they're hesitant to alienate Canadian MAGA voters, or these people are actually pro-Trump. And this brings us back to Jamil Javani. He is good friends with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, and also others in that circle of influence. I'll do a video on this guy in the next couple of days. If you want to be sure that you don't miss that, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. In the meantime, stay calm, stay strong, and elbows up.